Welcome in to another episode of my Dynasty Fantasy Football YouTube channel. Today I'm discussing must-sell players for Dynasty Fantasy Football. Make sure to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe if you haven't. 60% of viewers aren't subscribed. Let's change that. Here's our first player, Dell. So, as with some of the players you're going to hear about today, it's not that I dislike Dell. It's that Dell is a little bit overpriced. So let's take a look at that. Why I picked Dell. On Keep Trade Cut, he's wide receiver 20. I think that's a little optimistic. I have Dell at wide receiver 26, which I think is more reasonable. Let's take a look at what he did last year as a rookie. 47 catches, 709 yards, 7 touchdowns, 4.3 catches, and 64.5 yards a game. Played 11 games. We know he had some injury issues. But this year, the Texans signed Stefon Diggs. They extended Nico Collins to a big contract. And therefore, Dell will be fighting hard for targets in 2024. Luckily, he has an elite quarterback in C.J. Stroud. But Dell's also a lot older than I think people think. He turns 25 in season. So he's not 22 like JSN and Jordan Addison, who are in the same rookie class. He is far older than they are. Now, if I had Dell, what would I do? Speaking of Jordan Addison, I think most people have Dell ranked significantly ahead of Jordan Addison. I'm not so sure about that. I think Addison, did more as a rookie, better prospect. So take advantage of the fact that there's uncertainty around Addison's quarterback, and you can get a plus with Jordan Addison to sell Dell. And then additionally, in Superflex leagues, can you get a 2025 first for Dell? I think you're a lot more likely to be really happy with having made that deal than really regretting making that deal. Now, to close out on Dell, again, I'm not saying I dislike him. In fact, I think he's a good player. Might even be a really good player. But can I pay a wide receiver 20 price for Dell when another wide receiver on his team, who's born in the same year, they're a few months apart in age, was just extended to a massive deal? And they brought in Stefon Diggs. Well, am I excited about Stefon Diggs? No. Do I think Stefon Diggs is 100% washed? No, I think Stefon Diggs will earn some targets. He will be a factor, even if I'm not excited about him. Dell also, he's played 11 games. I mean, we're not talking about someone who's totally proven that they're elite. Struggled with some size-related injuries. I also think people think Dell is younger than he is, as we talked about earlier. And I just cannot see with the Collins extension and Dell's profile that he's ever going to be a top 12 dynasty wide receiver 1. That's not going to happen. So while I like Dell, I feel like the upside versus risk calculation at wide receiver 20 is a bit too much toward risk, which is why I have him as a sell. Now, second player, Josh Jacobs. And Josh Jacobs, I think, is just scary to me. And I'm starting to hear more and more things about, he's just there were some injuries during camp. There were other issues. Marshawn Lloyd is looking good. I just not excited about Josh Jacobs. I'd like to just move on if I had him. On Keep Trade Cut, he's running back 15. I have him running back 16, but significantly lower in my overall rankings. It's not really that I dislike his spot among running backs too much. My suggestion is not going to be that I trade Josh Jacobs for another running back. My suggestion is just that I move out of this range of running back entirely. Now, let's look at Jacobs' career, kind of see what he's done. In 2019, as a rookie, he was great. 242 carries, 150 yards, 7 touchdowns, 4.8 yards a carry, 20 catches for 166 yards. But then in 2020, he had more volume, but fewer yards, just 3.9 yards a carry and 33 catches. So he improved a little bit in the receiving game. 2021, kind of similar to 2020, but with less volume, but more catches, similar efficiency. 2022, obviously, that was his career year. 340 carries, 1,653 yards, 12 touchdowns, 4.9 yards a carry, 53 catches, and 400 yards. So he had everything. He had volume, he had efficiency, he had touchdowns, and he had receiving game work. Everything you could want. But then last year, struggled with injuries. Efficiency was gone, 3.5 yards a carry. Receiving went down, 37 catches, just 296 yards. And then he finished the year injured, as we know. Of course, Jacobs signed with the Packers this offseason, 4 years, $48 million. But we know a lot of that's funny money. There's like 12.5 million guaranteed. So this could be a 1-2 year deal easily. After 2 years, there's almost no dead cap. And they can get rid of him after 1 if they like. And of course, he's sharing the backfield with A.J. Dillon, who the Packers re-signed, but also Marshawn Lloyd, who I wasn't sure the Packers were going to take a running back on day 2. And that definitely has impacted my take on Josh Jacobs. Now, how to get out from Josh Jacobs. The first, you can't get a 25 first for Josh Jacobs, I don't think. But if you can get a 26 first, I would just take it and move on. Then another one, Rashee Rice is still lower than Josh Jacobs on keep trade cut. I get being scared of Rice, but Rice is far younger than Jacobs. And he's a wide receiver. So if you can do this, I think Rice will be worth a lot more in a year's time. And then this last one is kind of insane to me. In Superflex, apparently Baker Mayfield is ranked lower than Josh Jacobs. How that's the case, I have no idea. That's completely insane. I'd much rather have the quarterback. Now, to close out on Josh Jacobs, I just don't want to be a part of a running back who's in decline. I think it's pretty clear Josh Jacobs is in decline. And Josh Jacobs is not Derrick Henry. Josh Jacobs really was elite for 1 season in 2022, had a solid rookie year. And in 2020 and 2021, he was volume-based, but he was just okay. He was just okay. He was not special in those 2 years. And 2023 was bad. So the 2022 season where everything came together, that to me looks more of an outlier. I think the 2020 and 2021 which is kind of in the middle, is more maybe what we can expect. If we get 2023 Jacobs, you're going to be really disappointed. So there's almost no guarantees in his contract after this year. So yeah, there are other players in his value range I could take. There are apparently a lot of sales you can make to get rid of Josh Jacobs. He's just a player I definitely will not be keeping on my dynasty team heading into the season. I don't want to see it and find out. Now, if you like my YouTube content, you should sign up for the Patreon. You get my rankings, access to the Discord, and the ability to ask in advance questions for these YouTube videos. Tiers begin at a very reasonable price of just $6 a month. I promise you, it'll be the best $6 you spent this month. And, I love creating this independent content, which, is independent of the corporations, editors, all that. But in order to do that, it requires independent support to exist. So I really appreciate everyone signing up for the Patreon. And additionally, we'll have start sit during the season. It'll only be done on the Patreon. It's not going to be done in the YouTube comments. Not going to be done on Twitter. Only on Patreon. So that'll only be for patrons this year. Next player, Dalton Kincaid. So I like Dalton Kincaid, but we're getting a little carried away. On keep trade cut, he's all the way up to tight end 2 behind Sam Laporta. I have him tight end 4. And on keep trade cut, he's almost 15 overall spots higher than I have him, which is kind of crazy to me. Last year, he had a good rookie season. I'm not going to take it away from him. 73 catches, 673 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4.6 catches, and 42.1 yards a game. For a tight end, it's great. He had a great season for a rookie tight end. Yes. And we know that Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis left in free agency. Keon Coleman and Curtis Samuel replaced them. And Khalil Shakir is still there as their 3rd wide receiver. Josh Allen remains an elite quarterback. So Dalton Kincaid finds himself as an opportunity where he could be the number 1 target on the Bills, which is rare for any tight end. However, though, there are some moves you might want to make. 1, you could sell Dalton Kincaid for Trey McBride. So McBride is the same age as Kincaid, but earned far more targets last year. He averaged 6.6 catches and 65.5 yards a game once he became the starter. Even in the games that Dawson Knox missed, Kincaid was not that good. So not up to this level. So it's just that McBride is a proven target earner to me at a level that we have not yet seen from Dalton Kincaid. So since they're the same age, I would rather have Trey McBride. And then I almost find this hard to believe, but in Superflex 10 and premium leagues, allegedly you can sell Dalton Kincaid for Tua Tagovailoa or Brock Purdy, and I would do that. These are quarterbacks; these are worth a lot more. You want to have the quarterback even in a tight end premium, so I would easily take those players over Dalton Kincaid. Now, similar to Tank Dell, who we talked about earlier, I like Kincaid, but his price is a little bit insane. I would much rather have Trey McBride, and also I'd rather have Brock Bowers over Dalton Kincaid. He's far younger, better draft capital earlier in the first round. And I just have a feeling that Brock Bowers is like an elite weapon, just elite. And Dalton Kincaid maybe is just a step below that. Certainly as a prospect, he was multiple steps below. And additionally, I just can't see any world where Kincaid is ahead of Trey McBride. That one makes no sense to me. And I disagree with that ranking. Feels a little bit like a vacated targets trap, as in, well, good players left, so of course Dalton Kincaid is going to get all the targets. Not sure that that's actually going to be the case. Now, I have a few Patreon questions today. One of them is actually about the Bills, so we'll get into that right now. Your thoughts on Khalil Shakir? Is he taking the Gabe Davis role? Will he be fantasy relevant or hit or miss like Davis was? So I don't think that Khalil Shakir and Gabe Davis are similar players at all. Davis is like a huge wide receiver, big guy. Shakir is tiny. Shakir goes into the slot a lot. Gabe Davis does not. Both can be used deep occasionally, but that's all they have in common. Nothing else. So last year, Shakir was solid. 39 catches, 611 yards, 2 touchdowns on 45 targets. So if you think about it, he caught a lot. I mean, 39 to 40 targets. That's a great catch rate. And he had 611 yards on just 45 targets. I mean, think about what that means. That's over 10 yards a target, which is insane. So insane efficiency, but he did not earn a lot of targets. Really, what's going to matter is who plays in 2 wide receiver sets between Shakir, Curtis Samuel, and Keon Coleman. The Bills play too much 12 personnel for the slot-only wide receiver to be relevant in their new offense. So whoever that is, and it's going to probably be Shakir or Samuel, whoever is the slot-only wide receiver is not going to be relevant. My guess, though, is I don't have any Bills wide receiver ranked in my top 45. I think they're going to stick to a run-heavy offense. They brought in Ray Davis to take off some of the work from James Cook. I think they're going to run even more like they did down the stretch last year. I do think Dalton Kincaid is going to be the most trustworthy player. I think all of Shakir, Samuel, and Coleman are going to have their games, but I think they're all going to be hit or miss, unfortunately. Thoughts on playing wide receiver or running back in super flex positions over a quarterback in the 18 to 22 range in a 12-team league? So quarterbacks in that range still score a lot. And you have to remember that you're starting other running backs and wide receivers. So the running back or wide receiver you're starting over the quarterback is usually not a stud player. So the answer to this question is almost never. And it's a great reason to join the Patreon because I have a start sit section in my Discord. You can ask me DM questions if you're a patron. And it's going to be the main focus in season on the Patreon is start sit. And it's the kind of question, if you had a question about it, just ask me. But that will only be available for patrons and no one else. Now, if you liked the video, make sure to drop a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. As always, the best way to support the channel is to subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notifications bell so you can be notified about all my exciting content as it drops. Of course, if you want my best fantasy football advice, like I've said many times, it's available on the Patreon. Cover Dynasty, redraft, rookie content, still, start sit, and more. Every sign up helps support my independent content that I'm doing here. But once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later.